With my luck, if I ever went to film school, yeah, this is how that shit would work out probably. Stoker Hills is brought to us by director Benjamin Lewis and stars David Gridley, Vince Hill-Bedford, William Lee Scott, and Tony Todd. Doesn't really star Tony Todd, but anytime Tony Todd's in a movie, I gotta mention it. 3 college students filming a horror movie find themselves trapped in their own worst nightmare, and their only hope for survival is 2 detectives who find the camera that they left behind. So when this movie starts out, you're gonna think that this is a found footage movie, because a good portion of the beginning of it is just that. But after a bit, it does transition over to a more traditional style film. However, it does retain some of those found footage moments as well, because the characters within the more traditional film part of the movie are watching the found footage parts of the found footage parts of the movie. Confused yet? Basically, we got these film school students who are making a horror film and things go horribly wrong. One of the characters in their film, while on the side of the street playing a hooker, gets picked up by a real-life psychopath and taken away, and they follow in pursuit. And of course, in true found footage tradition, they keep the cameras rolling for reasons. Now, the traditional movie part of this film would be the detectives that find the camera that the kids were using. And the detectives are watching the footage as they're hunting down this killer. Now, all this conveniently takes place in the same night. So they found this video camera the same night that they're out looking for this killer. Which is good for our characters because they're being held hostage by this guy who's just wanting to do all kinds of Saw-esque shit to him. Now, while this premise sounds a bit contrived, I was okay with it. I mean, it was kind of working for the movie as it was going on. Don't take it too serious, but you can have a good time with it. The detectives are watching the video as we get to see it as well, so we get to see what happened to the kids earlier in the night as they go from place to place, tracking them down through this video. It's all fairly well done. Some of the performances are a little shaky, but for the most part, I mean, it was fine. I was cool with it. I was along for the ride. However, there is one thing, well, actually, there's quite a few things, but there's one thing in particular that stuck with me from the beginning all the way to the end, and that was what this movie's endgame was. There's a thing that happens in the end of the movie, and the movie is really, really fucking proud of it. But to be totally honest, I picked out what this thing was going to be in about the first 20 minutes of the movie. That feeling never really left me, and when we get to the end and the movie's really proud of this thing that it does, I was like, oh, yeah, okay, well, there you go. I don't feel as if I'm some great movie guru detective or anything. I don't think that I'm the only one that's gonna pick up on this thing. The thing that the movie does isn't inherently bad. It could be clever, but the fact that I was able to pick up on it that early in the movie and that feeling never left me kind of took away from it all in the end. Now, all that aside, that does not mean the movie couldn't have been entertaining, and the movie does have its entertaining moment. We essentially have these kids that are running through a bunch of different scenarios from this psychotic murderer while the cops are hot on their trail. The problem is that all these situations that they get into, the moments when they're running from this killer and trying to hide from him, aren't really all that interesting. The beginning parts of this pursuit and where it inevitably goes, those are okay. I was cool with those, but the stuff that happens in the middle is really just these guys running from a guy, mostly in the woods and a couple of other various places. There's nothing too terribly interesting that happens during these parts. They're just running and videotaping it, and then the cops are watching it all and following to these same places and saying, okay, on to the next place. On its own, it's not a bad idea, but they just didn't put much in there to make it very interesting. And then there's our mystery killer and why this killer is doing what he's doing. We do get answers to these questions. The only problem is those answers are kind of fucking dumb. I didn't need the why this crazy killer is doing crazy shit to be that deep, but the movie tends to focus on it quite a bit, making it a bigger thing than it needs to be. If they had just said, hey, it's this thing, I would have been like, okay, whatever, that's kind of dumb, but rolling on. But they spend a lot of time on that once we know what it is. And in doing that, the movie brings a lot of that to the surface and gets you to thinking about it, and you start to realize how fucking stupid it all is. Closer to the end of the movie, it decides that our killer also went to the school of Jigsaw, apparently. Because the movie kind of becomes very reminiscent of a Saw movie near the end of the flick. Now, I'm not gonna go into any more detail about the end of this movie. However, I will say that there are things that happen in the climax of this movie that are just dumb as hell. And I can deal with dumb as hell. I'm cool with dumb as hell. It's just like dumb as hell right in your fucking face. That, and when the movie gets to the icky gooey red stuff that we're wanting it to have, while it does allude to a lot of it, and it does show some violence and some blood and gore in the film, it cuts away an awful lot. And I don't get why. The movie doesn't look bad. It looks like they had a decent amount of money behind it. And some of the effects, while they look okay, they're practical, they're just kind of I was just wanting a bit more. There's moments when our killer will stab someone, and what they do is they show him go in, and right before he pierces the skin, it cuts away to someone going, ah! But then it shows him pull the blade out and blood spews everywhere. I'm like, you clearly were able to show the effect. You could have done this thing. Why did you cut away? You're clearly not opposed to showing the violence and gore, and you want to be that kind of movie, but you're not allowing yourself to be that kind of movie. I'm not saying the movie needed to be overtly bloody and violent, but if you're gonna try and have that tone, if you're gonna present that to people, then fucking do it. Don't cut away. Now, performance-wise, the movie is a bit of a mixed bag. I will say that the vast majority of the performances are fine. However, there are some that really stick out. There's not like one person that was worse than everybody else. It's like at times they're all fine, and then at other times it's like, ooh, well, that's not good at all. Overall though, I guess I'd say the performances in this movie for this type of movie are fine. There's nothing that I was just like, oh my God, you are absolutely god-awful terrible. Get the fuck off the screen. I mean, there were a couple of moments, but overall, everybody did okay. Now I know it sounds like I'm really ragging on this movie and I'm just talking shit about it left and right, and that's because there was quite a bit of shit to talk, but overall, I kinda enjoyed the movie. Well, yeah, I picked out the thing in the end, and that's kind of a big deal. As a whole, the movie was enjoyable enough. It is far from the best type of horror movie like this that I've ever seen, but it was okay. Also, before anybody shoots on down to the comment section and starts to type out that, well, there's a reason why all these things are the way you say, and why some of them are bad, and why some of them are blah, 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 that we find in the end of the movie, I know that, but you know, honestly, that doesn't really make it much better. Guys, Stoker Hills was okay. The movie looks good overall, the story is okay, the performances are okay, the whole ending thing, even though I guessed it, is okay. The movie overall is just kind of okay. There are quite a few contrived moments in the film, and some of the stuff in it is just dumb, but like I said, overall, it's okay. It ain't gonna be on anybody's top 10 of the year or anything, but if it shows up on your streaming platform of choice, then check it out on streaming.
Across the street.
I wasn't really expecting much out of this movie, and I'll at least say it was better than I thought it would be. So if you're just looking for a pretty okay horror flick for the night, you don't mind a bit of found footage in your horror, then check out Stoker Hills, and I think you'll have a pretty okay time with it. So there it is, guys, my review of Stoker Hills. If you enjoyed and want more content like this, hit that subscribe button and help my little channel grow. If you want to help out the channel, check out my Patreon in the description below and become a jarhead and get some of the awesome benefits to go along with that, like these guys, and possibly join my top tier and become a bad motherfucker like my man Greg C and Dragon Khan. If you like video games or you just want to see this dumbass prancing around like a fucking idiot, then check out my new gaming channel, Jag. That's right, I named it Jag. Come at me. Link in the description. Any support is appreciated. If you liked what I had to say, give me a like. If not, let me know in the comments below why. And as always, stay sexy, Stoker Hills.
He's on the move.
Go, go, go!
So while I don't have anything like witty or funny or anything like that to add to the end of this review like I usually do, what I think is witty or funny, whatever, I will say that I just noticed why, before I even get into the editing process of this video, why the vast majority of it is probably gonna look very washed out and bright. And that is because I just noticed that I left these big ass lights on that I usually turn off. So instead of looking really washed out like it does right now, it should look like this. See? That seems a lot better. This is a much warmer feel. This is what I was going for. And no, I'm not gonna go back and reshoot this whole fucking review because I just realized it here at the end. Fuck that shit. I will include this part in the end of the review though, just so I can prove that I know how to properly light a scene. So there you go.